Welcome to the Trudy Light Show with your host, international celebrity life coach to the stars, Trudy Light.
Hi boys and girls, I'm Trudy Light, international celebrity life coach to the stars. I was a burlesque performer in London for as long as I can remember. The trouble is I've got a terrible memory, so it may have been only for a few weeks. Many years ago, probably, I began building a reputation for giving wise and insightful advice to my friends and fellow performers who would come to me with their problems. Of course, with an address book containing so many A-list celebs, confidentiality has been my watchword, so much so that in all these years I've only published 2 books full of celebrity expose, plus occasional articles for the best-selling Vaccinations magazine. A 3rd book is in development, but Miley Cyrus's lawyers are being a teeny bit difficult. Among my many celebrity friends, I have been credited with bringing about 12 marriages and 17 divorces, as well as numerous breakups, reconciliations, and trips to Dignitas. It was my advice that was said to have resulted in the return of an absconding high-profile Premiership footballer to his club, now sadly in administration, which is hardly my fault. A famous heavy-drinking TV chef becoming teetotal, if only on Wednesdays, and the resignation of a senior member of the government, who is now a banker, for which I can hardly be held responsible. My reputation for giving sound advice has spread like dysentery, counteracting the shameless charlatanism of astrologers, numerologists, and women called Doreen who purport to converse with the dead. The Trudy Light Show is the gold standard for TV shows featuring international celebrity life coaches to the stars, of which there are more than one might think. Usually my celebrity clients pay through the nose for my advice, those of them who have any noses left, that is. But here on the Trudy Light Show, my millions of viewers all over the world and elsewhere can benefit from my advice for free. If you have a problem, I can help. But only if you write to me. After all, I'm not telepathic, though I know what you're thinking, you naughty thing. So write to me, like Scott, who lives in San Francisco.
I'm 42 and I've just recently got divorced. I was married for 19 years and I've been out of the dating scene for ages. I'm back on the scene now and I was wondering if you could give me any tips on how to date a girl. A girl like you, for example.
Well, Scott, it's great to hear from you. I thought all the men in San Francisco were gay. Isn't that where HIV all started? Some of you chaps were fooling around with monkeys, weren't you? Well, we've all done that, I guess. Where was I? Oh yes, I'm very flattered, Scott, but San Francisco is an incy-wincy bit far from me, sitting here in little old London town. So what I've done is put together some tips on how to get a date with a sexy lady. Pay attention now. This is solid gold, foolproof. If you follow my advice, you'll soon find true love, or at least your next shag. Go and get a pen and paper and write this down. I'm going to share my top 3 tips for getting that girl to fall for you. But you must promise me you'll keep this to yourself. This is powerful stuff and could be dangerous in the wrong hands. Are you ready? Okay. My top 3 tips are the 3 S's. Smell, smiling, and smoothness. Let's start with smell. Every girl loves a bloke who smells good. They just love to get lost in a saucy little aroma, and then every time they smell that sexy fragrance, they start having all kinds of naughty thoughts. But I don't mean just any old smell. Oh no, you've got to put some effort into wooing your woman. Drowning yourself in Jean-Paul Gaultier just won't cut the mustard. If you want to win the heart of a really classy girl, you're going to have to go and get yourself some Lynx Africa. Next, I want to talk to you about smiling. I go to lots of celebrity events with my best friend Dita. I recently saw the Golden Globes. Pamela Anderson still looking great, by the way. I get so bored of seeing guys who never smile. You've probably heard it takes 247 muscles to frown, but only 2 to smile. So the next time you catch a lady's eye at a social occasion wearing your Lynx Africa, don't forget to smile at her. Now finally, my third S, smoothness. Every girl loves a smoothie. She appreciates a genuine compliment. So if a girl looks great, then tell her, even if you don't know her. Find something to admire about any lady and tell her. If you're a bit nervous at first, try it out with someone you don't fancy. The scruffy hippie in the tie-dye skirt with the soap-dodging skills. The spotty checkout girl in the polyester uniform at the supermarket. Or the Conservative Party official at the polling station with horn-rimmed spectacles. Then try it out with someone you do fancy. Just be honest and say, lovely hair, nice shoes, interesting squint. But don't be creepy. Pay a genuine compliment and you'll get a positive response. Suck it and see, as my ex used to say. Next is an email from Sherry, all the way from New Orleans.
I have a problem. I'm in a bad place.
Well, Dieter and I had a fabulous time at the Burlesque Festival in New Orleans, and I'm sure there are far worse places.
I have a close male friend, Sheldon. Recently, he told me he has romantic feelings for me and wants to be more than just friends. But I don't feel that way about him. I've had a couple of hot dates with a hot guy lately. It drove Sheldon crazy. He started crying, trying to lay a guilt trip on me. What do I do, Trudy?
Well, Sherry, I have to start by saying that nobody except a hippie says guilt trip anymore, so stop it. You're not a hippie, are you? All that free love. Surely if something's worth having, it's worth paying for. But the point is that straight men and straight women cannot be just friends. It's against nature, like the Michael Bublé Appreciation Society, wearing socks with sandals, or having inappropriate thoughts about a pony. Oh, where was I? Oh yes. Sherry, everybody, stop what you're doing and pay attention. I've had lots of straight male friends. How did we become friends? Because they fancied me, that's how. It's nature, it's sexual attraction, it gets in the way of everything. Next time a straight member of the opposite sex invites you to a celebrity event, or offers you some time alone with their pony, ask yourself why. Now I'm sure there are millions of my straight viewers all over the world and elsewhere saying, Trudy, 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 I trust you with my life, if not with my pony, but this time you've got it wrong. I have a great straight friend of the opposite sex and I don't fancy them at all. Well, if that's true, then that friend sure as hell fancies you. That's how it works and that's nature. So at some point that friend will realise their feelings are not reciprocated and that will turn them into a resentful, sulky individual with low self-esteem, which is as bad as having a hippie about the place. Well, almost. So, Sherry, if you really can't bring yourself to do Sheldon, then do yourself and him a favour. Tell him to go screw himself. Oh, and do ask him to film it, upload it and send me the link. Now my next email is from Shane, who's written to me all the way from Adelaide in Australia.
About 6 months ago, I met this real bonza Sheila. She's cute, she's smart, but she's got the smallest breasts in South Australia. I reckon she could be wife material, but how do I put it to her that she gets some implants?
Well, Shane, millions of my viewers all over the world and elsewhere may find this attitude of yours shallow, selfish and misogynistic, but I'll say 2 things in your defence. First, Shane is from Adelaide in Australia, so what do you expect? Secondly, It could be that Shane is quite willing to undergo some work himself, as I'd imagine his girlfriend thinks he could use some improvement, judging from his photo at least. So I think we should give Shane the benefit of the doubt. My best friend Dieter is always chatting to me about the ethic of reciprocity. It's one of her key moral principles. Oh, have I lost you, Shane? What Dieter means is you give a little, you get a little. So the solution is to ask your girlfriend what she thinks about the size of your donga, as I believe you Australians refer to it, and offer to undergo surgical enlargement. Unless, of course, you're already hung like a donkey, in which case you could offer to undergo a penis reduction procedure. Oh, that reminds me. I haven't paid my monthly donation to the donkey sanctuary. Well, you never know when you might need one, do you? Oh, where was I? Oh, yes. If you're willing to go through with that, then you're in the clear to suggest to your girlfriend that you'd like her to have great big, what is it you Australians call them? Bazongas? But I'll warn you now, Shane, be careful what you wish for. Be prepared for your enhanced girlfriend getting hit on left, right and centre by successful, rich, attractive men. She'll most likely leave you for someone much better, who isn't at all bothered about the size of her boobs, or at least pretends he isn't. There you'll be, abandoned, all alone with your surgically reduced penis. Still, at least you'll have plenty of time on your hands, or should I say hand, to tug it back to the same length it was before the surgery. Just don't go showing it to anyone who doesn't want to see it. And talking of Harvey Weinstein, see you next time. And remember, keep it light.
If you've been affected by any of the issues in this program, you better get used to it.
I've had an email from Ivan, all the way from Vladivlov, all the way from Russia.
Dear Trudy, I'm pleased to have intercourse with you.
I bet you are, Ivan.
I have girlfriend, Nadia, 7 months now, but I have physical love needs with beautiful single girl at factory. I need dumb girlfriend fast, but I coward. So is my question, how do it, Trudy?
Well, Ivan, you sound like a complete brute, but you've raised a universal problem. Now, my solutions may seem quite cruel, but really there is no kind way to dump someone, and it is always much worse to stay in a bad relationship. Paul Simon sang that there are 50 ways to leave your lover, but he gave us only 5, and of all my millions of viewers all over the world and elsewhere, only a few of you are named Jack, Stan, Roy, Gus or Lee, so the rest of you are stuffed. So here are my 3 suggestions for any coward wanting to dump his or her partner, which will work no matter what your name is. The first alternative, make them dump you. Be dull. Buy a rucksack. Talk about becoming a teaching assistant. Invite your partner on a camping tour of East Anglia. Or try being inattentive. Lock yourself in the bathroom with just your gerbil for company for hours on end. Oh, where was I? Oh yes, make them dump you. Casual insults, they always do the trick. Tell them they're looking older, fatter, balder. Before you know it, you'll be rid of them. Now, I picked up suggestion number 2 from my best friend Dieter. You stop communicating altogether. She's so playful. Sometimes she practices on me for months on end. If you want to avoid an awkward scene and all those long explanations, just don't answer their calls, ignore their texts, and if they bombard you with whiny messages, then write a formal letter threatening them with a restraining order. Ivan, it's simples. Finally, the third alternative, dumping by text. Just something curt and final. As a coward, feel free to blame yourself. You can even use that good old get out, "It's not you, it's me." But beware the text back from your angry and spurned lover. Don't read it. Do the cowardly thing and just press delete. So, moving on, I've had an email from Birgitta, all the way from Copenhagen, Denmark. Well, I love Borgen and ABBA, so naturally I was interested.
Hi Trudy, please help. I friended this boy on Facebook and he started following me on Twitter. He somehow found out where I live, and yesterday I saw him hanging around outside of my street. What the hell do I do?
Well, Bridget, this sounds like stalking. And as my best friend Dita says, there are 2 types of stalking and only one of them is fun. This is a growing problem. I'm sure you know how close I am to Kate Middleton. I must have spent more time in the royal box than Will's. The other day I overheard her saying that she attracts all kinds of weirdos. Bridget, you have 2 choices. Either humiliate him publicly or go to the police. Now, if you're like me, you won't want the police crawling all over your hard drive. I've no idea how I'd explain those chimpanzee pictures. Where was I? Oh, yes. Bridget, go on the offensive. Fill social media with details of his stalking. Compare him unfavourably with somebody really ugly, like Michael Gove. And if he still doesn't take the hint, find yourself a willing lesbian, or perhaps a chimpanzee, and make a sex tape. Send him a copy to prove that he's wasting his time with you. Oh, and do send me a copy too, won't you? Oh, which reminds me, Freddie from Amsterdam, yours is not the kind of problem I can help with. The only way that's coming out is through a trip to accident and emergency. Don't worry, they've seen it all before. Well, certainly most of the attachments, if not an entire Black & Decker. Matt from Pensacola, Florida has written, Pensacola? That's the inferior brand, isn't it? I didn't know they'd named a town after it. I'm more of a Coke girl myself.
Dear Trudy, I watch your show and I think you're fantastic, sexy, and brilliant.
Why, thank you, Matt. It's very kind of you to say so.
My girlfriend wants a threesome, but it's not the kind that most guys would love. It's with me, her, and another guy. And what's more, she wants to watch him perform oral sex on me. Well, I'm not gay or even bisexual, but I don't want to let her down. What should I do?
Well, Matt, there's a lot of pressure these days for a hot girl to be able to give great blowjobs. There are many online guides to watch. Pam's done one, Kim's done one, Paris has done one. Well, we've all done one. But as most of us girls don't have penises ourselves, we can't possibly know, as well as you boys do, what feels really good. And it could be that your girlfriend is hoping to pick up some tips by watching a man perform oral sex on you. In any case, the fact you're asking for my advice indicates that you must be at least a little bit bi-curious. And why not? I'm as broad-minded as the next person. Well, unless the next person is my best friend Dita, who can be absolutely filthy. And if you're as broad-minded as me, then you may like it. After all, it does involve you getting a blowjob, doesn't it? And if you agree to please your girlfriend like this, who knows what exciting, adventurous and naughty things she might then agree to do to please you. Once you've had your threesome with another guy, perhaps your girlfriend will be open to bringing in another girl, maybe more than one. And after that, well, you have those gorgeous fluffy raccoons in Florida, don't you? Where was I? Oh yes, I think I'd finished, Matt. In fact, it was a matte finish. Now, As you know, my celebrity clients usually pay through the nose for my advice. Those of them who have any noses left, that is. But I've had a request from the fabulously talented and gorgeous Earl Oaken. Well, as I'm a huge fan, I've decided to make an exception in his case. Free celebrity advice for my favourite guitarist, singer, songwriter, comedian. Who knows? Maybe he'll even write a song about me one day. Earl?
Trudy, I'm very impressed by your show and your advice about relationships. As a man not in a relationship, I'd be even more impressed if you gave advice to get women doing some of the chessing up in the first place.
Earl, I can't believe you're not in a relationship. I'd have thought you'd be beating off the girls with a pointy stick. You're witty, gifted, urbane, and an absolute dreamboat. Daniel Craig's got nothing on you. Oh, there's a thought. Let's start a Facebook campaign to make Earl Oaken the next Bond. Now, pay attention, girls. Don't you realise there are some guys out there who prefer you to make the first move? All you have to do is walk up to the object of your desire, put your hand on his shoulder, look him in the eye and say, "You'll do." What's the worst that could happen? Let's assume he's not carrying a taser. But perhaps some of you girls are afraid of rejection, or that if you make the first move, you'll be used, abused, and abandoned as soon as an Angelina comes along. Poor Rachel. But only a love rat would do that. Oh, a love rat. That sounds nice and fluffy, doesn't it? A love rat with nippy little teeth. Oh, where was I? Oh, yes. Carpool DM, girls. Seize the day. After all, you may get killed tomorrow. And talking of Oscar Pistorius, see you next time. And remember, keep it light.
If you've been affected by any of the issues in this program, why not get a pet, a dog for example, so that you can project your deluded notions of being loved onto it?
I've had an email from William from Newcastle upon Tyne.
Why, aye, Trudy pet. Can you please give me some advice on how to get over my ex-girlfriend cheating on me with my so-called best mate? It hurt me so much that now I find it hard to trust a woman again.
Well, William, I can see that you're taking this very badly. But, as my best friend Dita says, it takes two to tango. I'm not sure where a Brazilian dance comes into it, but it seems unfair to decide to stop trusting only women. Be an equal opportunities cynic. Hasn't your best friend behaved just as badly as your ex-girlfriend? If it makes you feel any better, millions of my viewers all over the world and elsewhere have been through the same thing. So my advice is, don't be heartbroken. There are plenty more fish in the sea. Fish who could become your new girlfriend, and other fish who could turn out to be your, Actually, it's got nothing at all to do with fish. I wish I hadn't started talking about fish. But you take my point. So my advice to anyone who's been cheated on is to rebuild your ability to trust by practicing with a more reliable species than humans. Not fish. But perhaps start with a puppy. Safe in the knowledge that a puppy would never betray you. Unless there's a toilet roll about, I suppose. Then, when you feel ready, move on to another fluffy animal, strengthening your ability to trust. Then after that, progress to something less trustworthy, like a snake. Yes, a snake. A lithe, flexible, slithery snake with a thick girth and a flicky tongue. Oh, where was I? Oh yes, eventually you'll feel secure enough to start trusting members of your own species again, both male and female. Failing that, you'll have built up a useful rapport with your snake. Now, what's next? Oh yes, Hubert got in touch from Chessington, southwest London.
I'm writing on behalf of a friend. He's having trouble wooing a lady that he really likes. He has tried everything, but she refuses to talk to me. Him. Please, Trudy, your advice would be most welcome.
Well, Hubert, I'm guessing you must be writing on behalf of a particularly close friend, as you seem confused as to who it is you're asking the advice for. You know, it really would have been so much better if your friend had written for himself. You see, successful international celebrity life coaching depends on a subtle and profound analysis of the individual seeking the advice. It's like psychoanalysis, only much cleverer, and not a substitute for the mother's breast. In fact, Sigmund Freud would have been far more successful if he'd had my extraordinary ability to gather information from the way people express themselves, the words they choose, their sentence construction, their lack of adequate punctuation. All these things give me vital clues that enable me to tailor my advice to that individual concerned. So, you see, you writing on behalf of your friend sort of defeats the point. Do you see? If a certain celebrity had written to me directly, rather than getting his friend to do it for him, he would never have felt the need to drive to Sunset Boulevard and get a blowjob off a prostitute. So it really wasn't my fault. Well, never mind. We are where we are, as my best friend Dieter says. Actually, I'm in London, and Dieter's in New York, and Hubert is in Chessington, where they have a zoo, which is very interesting. They have a fine collection of meerkats there, all perky and furry and... Oh, where was I? Oh, yes. The best advice I can give your friend is to do what my millions of viewers all over the world and elsewhere have done, and watch my previous episode where I talk about how to get dates with hot girls. You will pass that on to your friend, won't you? But you see, even this is just guesswork, because I'm working from your interpretation of your friend's problem, rather than a direct statement of the problem from your friend. So, boys and girls, if you have a problem I can help with, however sordid, do write to me directly, won't you? Trudy@trudylight.com. The next email is from Thomas in Ontario, Canada.
I was taught never to hit a woman, and I never would, but that has not stopped women from hitting me. And there are no places about for a man to get away from the abuse.
Well, Thomas, you make a good point. Why is it that so many women today are so aggressive? Now, don't get me wrong, I'm probably one of the biggest feminists in the whole world. But that doesn't mean I feel compelled to go around hitting men, accusing them all of being potential rapists and making their pet fish ride bicycles or whatever it is those militant feminists do. My take on feminism is to champion and uphold everything that is good about femininity. Masculinity and femininity are equally as valuable as each other. To say that one is better than the other is like judging Venus and Mars, though I do think it was one of Paul McCartney's better albums. What I'm trying to say is that masculinity and femininity are two sides of the same coin. It's yin and yang, fire and water, heads and tails. Oh no, hold on, they literally are two sides of the same coin, aren't they? What I'm saying is that it takes two halves to make a harmonious whole. As my best friend Dieter says, must not all things at the last be swallowed up in death? Though she has been feeling a bit depressed lately, poor thing. Now, there is a certain type of feminist who believes that in order to attain true equality, a woman must be just as masculine as men. Well, you know what that leads to, don't you? Aggressive women who think they have to go around acting like even bigger dickheads than their male counterpart dickheads in order to get on in life. Other species, genetically similar to humans, have societies that are matriarchal, where femininity holds the power, such as bonobos, those adorable, fluffy little monkeys. Where was I? Oh yes, I have to go now. I don't want to be late for my International Celebrity Life Coach to the Stars workshops with Mariella. She calls them workshops, but thank goodness there isn't a lathe or a vice in sight. The first workshop is about not being bitchy. As my best friend Dita says, if you can't think of anything nice to say about somebody, then don't say anything at all. Although I'm sure she has other reasons for never talking about me. Mariella's second workshop is entitled Don't Be Pretentious, or in other words, Ne soyez pas prétentieuse. See you next time, and remember, keep it light.
If you've been affected by any of the issues in this program, you need to ask yourself some serious questions.
I've been getting a lot of emails about religion lately, which is strange because I didn't think that many people were interested in it anymore. Take this one from Billy Ray of Salt Lake City, who says he's proud to be a moron. Oh no, hang on. It says Mormon.
Sister Trudy, I love your show, but I feel really sorry for you, being a godless atheist and all. I'm a-begging you, please let the Bible into your heart so you too can be full of God's love.
And then, by sheer coincidence, I found one of these self-same Bibles in the bedside drawer. Strange they leave them lying about like that, isn't it? I mean, you'd think they'd have some retail value. Although there hasn't been a sniff of interest on eBay so far. Now, let me tell you about this Bible. It's got 2 testicles, one older than the other. Oh no, sorry, not testicles, testaments. To look at it, you'd think it was a book, but oh no, it's much cleverer than that. It's got loads of books inside it. These include Genesis. That's about progressive rock. Exodus, that's about reggae and how people run away from it in droves. But it's not all music and dance, oh no. There's Numbers, which is difficult to sum up. Proverbs, things like no man is an island, oh, except the Isle of Man, of course. Lamentations, oh no. There's also the Book of Job, which dates back to before the gig economy, and the Book of Jude, which is a bit obscure. And then it seems there are loads of other religions, not just those ones this Bible's about. Take Spiritualism, for example. I received an email from someone with an A in their name, or it could have been an L, who lives in Montego Bay, Jamaica. Except when I say lives, this person is actually dead. And when I say email, what I actually mean is a spiritual message through the ether. That's right. During a further 10 minutes in-depth research, while my handbag was drying out from the soya milk, I discovered that I come from a long line of spiritualists. This lady, or man, asks,
Trudy, can I pass on a message from the other side?
Yes, of course you can, Angela, Alan, Annabelle. Or is it Trevor? I'm not completely certain about the A or the L.
Please ask Adam Sandler to stop making movies and stick his...
No, I've lost her. Or him. I traced my family origins back centuries and found psychics and spiritualists and mediums throughout my lineage. When I was a little girl, my mother denied that any of our family or ancestors had any psychic abilities, but now I think back, I distinctly remember 3 things that convinced me. First was when we used to go to my Auntie Vera's for supper. She always burnt the steak. Well, that must be a sign, mustn't it? And then, one day, when I was dressing up in some of my mum's old clothes, I noticed that they all had a label with the word medium written on it. Bit of a giveaway, don't you think? And my dad's boyfriend is always saying my mum's a witch. And now I understand why Dita says I'm the offspring of Satan, though that's only when she's being nice. So, I hear you ask, Trudy, why have you suddenly become interested in spiritualism? Well, there are 2 reasons. First, you get something called a familiar, like a cat, for example. And I've been familiar not just with cats, but with all sorts of furry. Where was I? Oh, yes. My second reason for getting interested in spiritualism is you can charge people for it. The top dial-a-medium website here in the UK charges a minimum £32.95p for 10 minutes. That's $200 US. I'd never exploit stupidity, but, well, a girl's got to eat and buy shoes and pay the entrance fee for the petting zoo. And if these people are so gullible, better I take their money than they spend it on the latest Dan Brown novel or their NRA membership fees or... Wait. I'm getting another message from the other side. Why would Netflix be getting in touch? Just my little joke. What I really mean is I'm getting a second message through the ether. Well, it's either the ether or something other than the ether. Or maybe it's Esther, who's living in Isha, except she's not so much living as dead.
Trudy, it's essential that you transmit a message from this side of the curtain. I represent a loose coalition of deceased and discarnate film lovers, and we demand that Adam Sandler desist and refrain from making any more of his appalling movies forthwith. Thank you. While we're here...
No, I've lost them. They come and go, that's how it happens. It's a bit like my best friend Dita and her sailors. Now, my millions of viewers all over the world and elsewhere know that I'm a great medium because I can always sense what someone is feeling. Like, for example, when my best friend Dita took out an injunction against me, I just knew she was upset about something. Next, Donatella from Italy got in touch.
Hiya, Trudy. Help me, please. My boyfriend has proposed to me, and I want to say yes, but he insists I convert to Catholicism. Trudy, what should I do?
Well, Donatella, the first thing to do is to learn to write English without that accent. But to answer your question, no, don't convert to Catholicism, run a mile. Oh, sorry, you're in Italy, so run 1.609 kilometres. Like most people, I'd never really taken much interest in religion. Well, I did have an imaginary friend when I was a little girl, but I grew out of that. Now I have Dita instead, and she's definitely not imaginary. Definitely not imaginary. But Donatella's email got me back to thinking about all the different religions, and I now have an announcement for my millions of viewers all over the world and elsewhere. Love and peace. Me am converted to Rastafarianism. It's such fun. Did you know that it's compulsory for us to smoke as much dope as possible? Ganja, we call it. Makes me all squiffy. And apparently I'm doing God's will at the same time. And the guy I buy it from, well, he's the equivalent of the priest who dishes out the communion wafers, isn't he? A very holy man. Ja Rule. Our God is called Haile Selassie, and he used to be an Ethiopian emperor. Well, if other people can worship a carpenter's son who lived 2,000 years ago, why shouldn't we worship an African emperor? De Lion a Zion. He won loads of long-distance running medals in the Olympics as well, which is why they elected him God. All my new Rasta friends, we call each other Blurred, because our vision's gone all unfocused from the ganja. And I have to listen to reggae. It's awful. No wonder Bob Marley called his backing group the Wailers. My hat's colours have special significance to us Rastas. Black is for Africa, the dark continent. Red is for the blood of the Martins, Dean Martin, Aston Martin, and Martin Luther King. Gold is for gold, and green is for the exotic vegetation of Ethiopia, cabbage, celery, and leeks. And talking of Julian Assange, see you next time, and remember, keep it light!
If you've been affected by any of the issues in this programme, I refer you to Proverbs chapter 12, verse 16.
I've had an email from Dr. Bob in Cardiff, who's an immunologist.
Dear Trudy, my question isn't to do with love or sex.
Oh?
I've watched all your shows, and it's clear that you have incredible insight into human nature.
Oh, thank you, Dr. Bob.
Medical science proves that most people wouldn't be alive today if it wasn't for vaccinations. So tell me, Trudy, why did some people refuse their children the MMR vaccine?
Well, Dr. Bob, I've thought long and hard about why people are so easily taken in by New Age anti-science thinking, and I've figured it out. You see, people were sick and tired of being told what they ought to do by the government. You ought to stop smoking. You ought to practice safe sex. You ought to be vaccinated. This is what's known as autism, and it came to a head with the MMR jab. Talking of head reminds me of my best friend Dita, who says she's had enough little pricks to last her a lifetime. More importantly, each of us has a responsibility to society to be immunised. It's pure selfishness not to, and it helps in our relationship with others. It's the diplomatic thing to do. You've heard of diplomatic immunity. That's what I'm talking about. The infamous, disgraced Dr. Andrew Wakefield claimed that proponents of the MMR jab were blinding people with science. Better than being blinded by the measles, I'd have thought. Now, some of my millions of viewers all over the world and elsewhere may not know what the MMR vaccine is. Well, it stands for measles, mumps and ribena. When they say ribena, don't take it literally. It immunises against all high-sugar fruit-based cordials, preventing tooth decay, diabetes and obesity. One thing it doesn't prevent, though, is headaches, which is the reason for John emailing me from Eton, the one in England. The Eton in Canada is a cathedral city, and it was Cathedral City who gave me their wonderful Big Cheese Award for Best International Celebrity Life Coach to the Stars.
I'm one of those chaps who gets blinding headaches when I have an organism. It's apparently because I put a lot of effort into it, and it raises my blood pressure. The pain is so great, it's pushing me off sex.
Experimenting with various organisms. Well, we've all done that, haven't we? Now I can see there's the slightest possibility John might have meant orgasms, which are altogether different. Well, usually. If that's the case, then it isn't all that complicated. Keep the orgasms and keep the headaches, or try celibacy and a pain-free head. Or you could try paracetamol. Did you consider that? No, of course you didn't. You've been too busy working yourself into headache-inducing frenzies with your little organism friends, haven't you? My best friend Dita is always complaining of headaches whenever I invite her somewhere. But they seem to clear up pretty quickly, as I often see her out later on with someone else. Perhaps she has the same problem. How about getting a kitten to lower your blood pressure? A cute, fluffy little kitten with tickly whiskers and paddy paws. Oh, where was I? Oh yes, Another thing to remember, it's not effort that counts, it's technique. Imagine you're flying a plane. All the effort in the world isn't going to land that thing. Actually, don't think about flying a plane. Think about your girlfriend or your kitten. And after all that, some of my millions of viewers all over the world and elsewhere believe there's more to life than sex. For example, compassion and kindness, literature, opera, nature, or just take the paracetamol and get back on the job. Still on the subject of health, my next email is from Adrian, who's writing from Birmingham, England's second city. They say Birmingham has more miles of canals than Venice, though far fewer gondoliers, but many more shopping trolleys. Venice has the Biennale and the Lido, whereas Birmingham has the Bull Ring and Edgbaston cricket ground, so it all evens out in the end. Adrian writes,
Trudy, I'm confused. Every day I read the paper and they're telling me one thing or another causes or prevents cancer. Now, I may not be too bright.
Really, Adrian?
But I don't know what to believe. Ta-da a bit.
Well, you're right. There's a certain class of newspaper, or more accurately, papers with no class at all, that carry daily stories about things which supposedly cause cancer. Tomatoes, mirrors, corduroy, polonium-210. They've all been blamed for causing cancer at one time or another, or praised for preventing it. It depends which paper you read. They come thick and fast like Lewis Hamilton, but you mustn't believe a word of it. Now, I know doctors study these things for 6 years or so, but I found the answer through 10 minutes of in-depth research. Through Wikipedia files, actually. At first I was a bit worried from the name that it was a different type of website altogether, and I very nearly didn't take a chance. Oh, and on that subject, let me give you a little tip. If the police turn up just before dawn and start talking about Operation U-Tree, they probably won't be interested in your views on arboriculture and pollarding. That was my mistake. But back to my research. I discovered that what mostly causes cancer is unregulated cell growth. I have a few girlfriends in Holloway and other prisons who wouldn't mind that too much. Cell growth, that is. But your best bet is to go easy on the polonium-210. In fact, steer clear of all kinds of German sausage, as I'm always telling my best friend Dieter. She loves nothing better than getting some wiener inside her. Oh, and spend less time reading trashy tabloids like the Daily Mail. Talking of the mail, this morning I actually received a letter. Snail mail, they call it these days. Thankfully our posties have legs, or there'd be trails of slime everywhere. This snail mail is from Nick.
Trudy, I was feeling poorly, so my doctor sent me for tests. They show I'm allergic to gluten, lactose, egg, soya, and anything else with an F in it. The only things I can safely eat are cucumber and wood. Help me.
Pop into a supermarket and buy a bottle of Mouton Cadet. You'll most likely be right as rain. Unless you're allergic to alcohol, that is. Or rain. The trouble is, everyone's allergic to something these days. If it isn't gluten, it's nuts, and if it's not nuts, it's celery. Why don't people try some more original allergies? Like Peru, or insouciance, or shekels. And talking of Benjamin Netanyahu, see you next time, and remember, keep it light.
If you've been affected by any of the issues in this programme, remember that the Trudy Light show is for educational purposes only and is not meant to be a substitute for the advice of a doctor or other medical professional.
Many of my millions of viewers all over the world and elsewhere have been having problems with their marriages. Or, to put it another way, they've been having marital problems. Take this email from Gunther, who's in Hamburg, Germany.
Dear Miss Trudy, come to me help if you lust have. Mein Herz ist kaputt. My woman hast for another woman me left. I am in despair.
Phew! German's a very difficult language, isn't it? I'm surprised I understood it. After that, I think I might give Wittgenstein's Logico Tractatus a try. You may well feel completely crushed, devastated, with your self-esteem on the floor. And of course you're wondering what that woman's got that you haven't. Well, I can think of 3 things straight off, and only one of them's a hairdryer. So, I'm recommending revenge. After all, as my best friend Dieter says, hell hath no fury like a German scorned. But when I say revenge, I know that you'll keep it light and retain your sense of humour. After all, you are a German. The best revenge is actually success. Think of the ideal scenario. You meet a beautiful lesbian. She turns. You fall in love and are inseparable. You've moved on, dignity intact, and at the same time made an impressive point to your wife. She'll be stunned and miserable that you've got over her so easily and magnificently, and you can wallow in her misery. I wonder if the Germans have a word for schadenfreude. Now you might think this scenario is unlikely, particularly the bit about a beautiful lesbian falling in love with you and turning because of you. But it doesn't matter. You can just pretend. All those mutual friends of yours and your wife, tell them all that this is exactly what has happened. If you really want to up the ante, you can even hire an escort to play the part of your beautiful girlfriend. It's only a tiny bit deceitful, and no one ever needs to find out that the beautiful girl is actually, far from being your new girlfriend, a stranger. And talking of strangers brings me on to my next email from Alicia, who's writing to me from Venezia, it says. I think she means Venice. Need to watch the spelling, Alicia.
Ciao bella, Trudy.
It's just me here, Alicia. I've no idea who this Bella is.
I love my husband, but lately our sex life has become boring. He agrees and has suggested we try some role-play by meeting in a hotel bar and pretending to be strangers. Should I do it, mia cara?
Mia? Cara? Who are Mia and Cara? Are they friends of Bella? Now, before I go any further, let me just say arrivederci to my millions of Italian viewers. I love you all. Isn't Italian a gorgeous language and so easy to learn? Now, Alicia, I'm with your husband. Oh, not literally, even though we are strangers. What I mean is, I think his idea is wonderfully romantic. I understand the problem of your sex life becoming boring, and it's important to liven things up so there's no threat to your marriage. Another big threat to any marriage is that Marilyn Monroe movie. What's it called? Oh yes, The 7-Year Itch. Apparently, watching that movie has been responsible for many couples breaking up. So, aside from avoiding that movie, here's what else you need to do. Buy a new outfit, style your hair differently, and do something unusual with your makeup. Then you're all set for your risque rendezvous. Oh, there I go, breaking into Italian again. It's so easy peasy. Tutti frutti. Cinque cinque. But be careful. When you arrange to meet a stranger in a hotel bar, you must take precautions, and I'm not talking about stuffing your purse full of condoms. No, arrange a bailout phone call with a girlfriend, just in case he turns out to be a weirdo or a pervert. Oh, hold on. I'm forgetting. In actual fact, it's your husband you're meeting, isn't it? Well, he could still be a weirdo or a pervert, I suppose. One of the good sort, hopefully. Next, I've had an email from Jason, from Texas, the Lone Star State. Imagine that. Only one celebrity in the whole of Texas. Houston, you have a problem. Jason also has a spouse who wants to liven up their marriage through sexual experimentation.
My wife said she was bored with our sex life and decided we should be open sexually. Trouble is, I've forgotten how to case down a one-night stand. My wife gets a lot of action, but how do I step up my game?
Look, Jason, before I go any further, I must just ask you, is this open marriage really what you want? You say your wife decided. Did you agree? Or did you just go along with it for an easy life? Suppose your wife suggested you have your spine removed. Would you go along with that for an easy life? Seems to me you need to have a backbone and man up, Jason. But it's not too late. Why don't you have a sit down and talk with your horny wife? Talk about what you want. You could even lay down some conditions to your agreement to this arrangement. Like, say, she agrees to let you join in when she lands herself some action. Or watch at the very least. Or she agrees to help you find women to sleep with. Like her friends, or her sister, or her mum, or her grandmother, or, here's an idea, her. That's right. See if you can't case down a one-night stand with your wife. Word is she can't get enough, so why shouldn't you get your share? Failing that, try dogging. Yes, dog her every move and follow her around until she gets so fed up she agrees to go back to exclusivity, which is what you really want, isn't it? But what Donna really wants is to show his wife he loves her. Let me explain. Donna, who's from Dorset, England, writes,
Hello, stunning Trudy.
Nice start, Donna.
My problem is I'm a transvestite, a cross-dresser, and my wife gets jealous because when I'm not Dave and turn into Donna, I look better than she does. How can I assure her that I love her just as much whether I'm Dave or Donna?
You say you're a transvestite, a cross-dresser. Well, I suppose I'd be a bit cross too if I had to choose between a vest and a basque every morning. Which reminds me, those basque terrorists. Seems a strange choice of clothing when you're blowing things up, doesn't it? You say you look better than your wife. Are you sure? Haven't you heard of Narcissus? It's another name for a daffodil, actually, and I've no idea why people mention it when someone says something conceited. I think it might be related to the word nemesis that I often used to hear my best friend Dita muttering. But I can't hear what she says now, not from outside the 200-metre exclusion zone. But if your wife really is jealous of how you look as a woman, then why not pass on a few tips about makeup and dress sense and hair? I bet she'd just love that. It'd be just like Queer Eye for the straight guy. Not that I'm saying you're queer. And dressing up as a woman isn't queer either. Not that I'm saying there's anything wrong with being queer. And not that I'm saying that your wife is a straight guy. She may not be straight. And she may not be a guy at all. Oh, wouldn't it be so much easier if we didn't have to wear clothes at all and were all covered in fur? Like a chinchilla. Yes, a chinchilla with a big bushy tail and scratchy little claws. Oh, where was I? Oh, yes. Before I forget, Ricardo from Seville. You'll need an orange, or a large satsuma if you don't have oranges in Seville, a carrier bag, some rope, and a stool. Maybe some Vaseline. And no, the auto has got nothing at all to do with cars. And talking of Jeremy Clarkson, see you next time. And remember, keep it light.
If you've been affected by any of the issues in this programme, you may like to visit www.games-flash.co.uk.
Like all top international celebrity life coaches to the stars, I'm often being asked for advice about Scotland. If you don't know what Scotland is, well, depending on who you talk to, it's either a distinctive, go-ahead, vibrant nation of progressive multiculturalism, or it's a freezing cold wasteland to the north of England. Take this email from Patricia of the North Riding branch of the Vegan Society in Yorkshire, England.
Dear Trudy, your advice about dating is all well and good, but will it work in Scotland? I'm going on holiday to the Shetland Islands soon and hope to meet a nice wee laddie in a kilt. Though obviously not too wee, if you know what I mean. Wink, wink.
So, Patricia, you're off to Shetland, home of those gorgeous Shetland ponies with their manes like velvet, their glistening eyes and their huge... Oh, where was I? Oh, yes. I've never been to Scotland myself. Scotland Yard, yes, but that mix-up with the bishop, the hosepipe and the nappy probably doesn't count. Scotland's famous for so many things, isn't it? Haggis, malt whisky, the Loch Ness Monster. Then there's all those Scottish celebrities. There's Rabbi Burns, their Jewish poet, Robert the Bruce, whatever a Bruce is. And then, of course, there's Sean Connery, the Scotsman that loves Scotland so much he could never quite bring himself to live there. Now, you say you're with the North Riding branch of the Vegan Society, but even assuming that north is the only direction you're riding in, Scotland is still an awfully long way to ride, and the Shetland Islands are an awfully long way from pretty much anywhere, including other places in Scotland, like Edinburgh, for example. That's in Scotland, isn't it? Edinburgh's got a castle and, well, it's got a castle. Now, this email you sent me, I have just the vaguest impression that you're hoping to meet a Scotsman in a kilt with a very large penis. Is that right? If so, it's a long shot, but try this tip from the locals. Have a go at the human equivalent of salmon fishing. Instead of salmon, you're hoping to hook a Scotsman. Just as slippery, but much more easily caught. All you need is the right sort of bait. So, pack your suitcase with shortbread, neeps and tatties, and a few cans of iron brew. Then, when you get there, deep fry the lot. And if you can find a way to deep fry yourself as well, you'll be utterly irresistible. The only slight concern is the next rerun of the referendum on independence for Scotland, or, to put it another way, Scottish independence, which is bound to happen at some point. As you're English, your Scotsman may take it literally and decide that he wants independence from you. If that happens, tell him that Scotland leaving the United Kingdom is unthinkable. When he asks you why, tell him 3 things come to mind straight away. First, all those poor English people having to use inferior brands of transparent sticky tape. Secondly, having to buy their insurance from a different country's widows. And thirdly, their children having to invent alternative hopping games for the playground. OK, I'm going to have my say on the subject of independence for Scotland, or, to put it another way, Scottish independence. What is the right decision, Trudy, I hear you ask? Well, it's this, that we should rely on the good sense of the Scottish people to decide for themselves. You know, the people who actually have a vote on the subject. Just let them get on with it. That's the right decision. Now, you might say, well, they've already had at least one referendum and they already have got on with it. The Scottish people have spoken, and just for a change we could actually understand what the hell it was they were saying. They said no and not yes to independence for Scotland, or, to put it another way, Scottish independence. They said no and not yes. And, well, I suppose it was always likely to be one thing or the other. All I can say is, phew, and thank you, Scotland. You do know what you did, don't you? You saved those of us south of the border. Well, I say border, but thanks to you there still isn't one. You saved us from interminable Tory rule. That's what you've done. and I for one will be eternally grateful. Thanks to you, we have the prospect of not being in permanent thrall to a government who loves the NHS so much they don't want to corrupt it with money. And you in Scotland can spend what you like on the NHS, keep free prescriptions and university education, raise your own taxes, use 5 a day to mean anything in batter, and pay your old folks a decent pension. Bloody hell, I'm moving to Scotland, even if it does require that I walk 500 miles, and I would walk 500 more just to be the international celebrity life coach to the stars, who walks 1,000 miles to fall down at your door. Oh, I just realised I haven't mentioned the clans. How can we be talking about Scotland and not mention the clans? The sensitive bulbous structure at the distal end of the human penis. Oh no, that's the glands, isn't it? Which brings me back to helping Patricia find that tartan-clad hunk in a kilt with a big cock, and to hang on to him, for a few weeks at least. That'd be longer than most of the matches I've made. Cheryl Cole, Lembit Opic, Julian Assange, Katy Perry, Jennifer Aniston. You all know in your hearts that I'm not even remotely to blame. I'm going to give you 2 more pieces of advice. The first is, if you're thinking of having your windows replaced, make sure to get a quote from Ben Nevis Windows, www.benneviswindows.co.uk. Superb workmanship, 0% credit, a no-quibble 5-year guarantee, and they'll beat or match any other quote. Not only that, but if you sign on the dotted line before you've even had a minute to think about it, their salesperson will ring their manager and get you another 5% off. Now, I know technically this might not seem to have an awful lot to do with helping you attract a Scotsman, but, well, the thing is that Ben Nevis Windows are paying me an awfully large amount of money to say it. The second piece of advice is learn Hindi, just in case things don't work out.
Why, Hindi?
Well, if you like men who don't wear trousers, India's full of them. And talking of Max Mosley, see you next time. And remember, keep it light.
If you've been affected by any of the issues in this programme, we are genuinely sorry. Perhaps you could cheer yourself up by buying some new windows from Ben Nevis Windows. www.benneviswindows.co.uk.
This email's from Piet in Feyenoord, Holland.
Dear Miss Light,
No need to be so formal. Just call me Trudy.
I am a sales manager in a city centre shoe store. I have a spouse.
I've no idea what that is, but I'm sure there must be a cream for it.
And we have a baby. The thing is, Trudy, may I call you Trudy?
Yes, of course. I already told you that you can. Oh, I see. You wrote this before.
I like to drink my wife's breast milk, but I like to think of myself as vegan. Trudy, in your opinion, is breast milk vegan? After all, it is a product from an animal, isn't it?
Well, Piet, it's good to know that your wife's an animal. Lucky you. But is breast milk vegan or non-vegan? Well, there are 2 sides to every story. Except West Side Story, of course. That's just about the West Side. Now, we don't want to get bogged down in the science, but my view is animals don't consent to being killed for their meat or hides, or exploited by humans for their milk, eggs or wool. When was the last time you saw a sheep working with a crack team of lawyers signing a consent form for wool in triplicate? Whereas if your wife's happy to let you drink her breast milk, then I think my millions of viewers all over the world and elsewhere will agree that you're in the clear vegan-wise. So just make sure you ask her first, and then you can slurp to your heart's content. My best friend Dita's always telling me that she's lactose intolerant, which seems a bit harsh on all those poor athletes who are disabled and lack toes. Now that I've helped you with your question, Piet, maybe you can help me with some of mine. In your country, is it true that people go around dipping their fingers in dykes? And what do the dykes think about that? And do twins in your country really talk double Dutch? And do your footballers get a Dutch cap every time they play for the national team? And what do you call it when you go halves for a meal with your partner? While I await your reply, I have a major announcement for my millions of viewers all over the world and elsewhere. After 17 years of being vegan, I've decided to give it all up and start eating dead animals, eggs and dairy products. Now I know my millions of vegan viewers all over the world and elsewhere will be very upset about this, but if you'll just let me tell you my 5 golden reasons, I'm sure you'll understand why I've made this momentous decision. First, eating meat is the reason why the human race is intelligent. Meat is brain food. That's right, isn't it? I know there are not that many lions in Mensa, but ask yourself, when did you see a herbivore? A giraffe, say, on University Challenge. You see what I mean? Secondly, if we didn't produce farm animals for meat, they wouldn't be born at all. It's obvious that farm animals not being born to produce food for humans would be an unmitigated disaster. You've got to feel sorry for them, haven't you? Not being born and all. You see what I mean? Thirdly, plants have feelings too. It's been scientifically proven that vegetables scream when they are picked, plucked or prodded. Proved by no less an authority than Prince Charles, apparently. You see what I mean? Reason number 4. All vegans end up weak and skinny. That's right, isn't it? Look, I know there are elephants and buffaloes and hippos and gorillas, all of them vegans, but you see what I mean? And reason number 5. It's normal in nature for animals to kill other animals. Now, I know that it's normal in nature for many male animals to try to have sex with every female of their species they come across, and not just in Essex. And in some species it's normal in nature for the female to eat the male after having sex, and not just in Essex. It's also normal in nature for animals to shit anywhere and everywhere, so maybe we all ought to start doing that too, and not just in Essex. The thing is, animals don't have self-awareness the way you and I do, and that means I can make a choice, and I've just made one. You know I love animals. Oh, where was I? Oh yes. So, after thinking it through, I've decided I'm staying vegan. Oh, while I've been talking to you, my inbox has been going crazy. I've been getting a flurry of emails from my millions of viewers all over the world and elsewhere asking me about the vegan diet. This one's from Hank in Dog River, Saskatchewan, in Canada.
My friend talked to me about him being vegetarian, and he says that he would never eat anything with eyes. But he eats potatoes, and potatoes have eyes, so don't that mean that he ain't really vegetarian?
Well, Hank, a potato is part of a plant, specifically a tuber. Although how some people manage to get a nice tune out of one is beyond me. And the general rule is that eating plants is okay, because I don't think those sort of eyes count. Secondly, Zucchini has got at least 2 eyes in it, and that's definitely from a plant too. Although courgettes don't have any eyes in them, do they? But I'd rather you didn't confuse the matter. This email is from my vegan friend Heather in Hove in England.
Why, aye, Trudy. I love aubergine, but my American friend says they're called eggplants that side of the Atlantic. Should I be worried, pet?
No, Heather, aubergine or eggplant is fine. The clue's in the word plant. We've already covered this. I wish you'd pay attention. They're just egg-shaped, silly. Like rubber plants are called rubber plants because they're shaped like condoms. Oh, another one. This one's from someone calling themselves Jez, who says he wants to remain anonymous because he's the most famous TV presenter in the world.
Trudy, despite my carefully cultivated, pathetic macho posturing and general impression of being a complete tosser, in my private life I'm actually a caring, compassionate vegan who loves nothing better than cycling and rescuing wounded animals. I just need your advice about whether kidney beans actually have any kidney in them, because when all's said and done, I'm not very bright.
Don't worry, Jez. You're fine with the kidney-shaped beans. And not only that, those flageolet beans just have to be fun too, don't they? Although there are some people who have a little bit too much fun with their food. Take this email I had earlier from someone calling themselves Tessa.
Dear Trudy, my husband has started spending hours on his computer. So whilst he was taking the bins out, I checked his search history and found he's been visiting food porn websites. I was very unsettled sitting down to dinner with a man who had just been wanking over www.wivesdoitwithasausage.com, especially as we were having toad in the hole.
Tessa goes on to tell me that she gave up in the end and had a cheese and pickle sandwich instead. Well, Tessa, I would suggest you try Italian, but I can only imagine your husband's reaction when you're biting on a breadstick, sucking in spaghetti, or munching on meatballs. So, all things considered, I advise you to play it safe and go vegan like me. Then explain to your hubby that there are certain things that he should never dip in the hummus, and that the expression finger food means something different to what he might imagine. And also, just because they're called crudités is no excuse for any shenanigans. Oh, I've got another one. This one's from Vanessa in London.
Dear Trudy, do you ever consult international celebrity life coaches to the stars yourself?
You're joking, aren't you? Do you think I'd take any notice of that kind of fake rubbish? And talking of Steve Bannon, see you next time. And remember, keep it light.
If you've been affected by any of the issues in this programme, you probably need a good stuffing. I recommend Sage and Onion.
Millions of my viewers all over the world and elsewhere have been asking me for relationship advice. Or, to put it another way, advice about relationships, as they've not been able to get a date for love nor money. Some of them have even tried both. People like Silke, who wrote to me from Geneva.
Dear Trudy, I am a physicist working at the Large Hadron Collider, investigating the Higgs boson. I have no boyfriend, as most men are frightened of a beautiful woman who also has an intellect.
Yes, Silke, tell me about it.
The only time the men here show any interest in me is when I talk about technical things. For example, quantum mechanics, the particle zoo, or the standard model.
Well, Silke, relationships often spring up between work colleagues, and chatting to the boys there about topics of mutual interest may lay the ground for a romantic relationship to develop. So, choose whichever guy at work you fancy most, and offer to help him fix some tiny little cars. That is what you mean by quantum mechanics, isn't it? Or be open to talking about the standard model with him. If you're not sure where to start, Try talking about the obvious ones. Kate Moss, Cara Delevingne, Naomi Campbell. They've all been considered the standard model at one point or another. If that conversation goes well, invite him to take you to the Particle Zoo. And while you're there, make sure you visit the large mammal section, because that's where you're most likely to find the Higgs bison. I'd imagine it'd be big and hairy. Oh, where was I? Oh yes. Some of my millions of viewers all over the world and elsewhere may not know what the big deal is about the Higgs bison. Apparently, and without getting bogged down in the science, this animal can explain mass. Doesn't seem very likely though, does it? Probably be better to ask a Catholic priest. They ought to be able to explain mass fairly well, if they're not too busy sodomizing choir boys, that is. You know, my best friend Dita has a theory that the universe is made of string. If she's right, then she has no excuse not to tie up my birthday presents from the last few years when she finally gets round to giving them to me. Though I'm sure she's just waiting for the right moment. Which brings me to Jaya Lakshmi from Bhubaneswar, India.
My family has arranged for me to marry a lovely boy called Suresh, who I met for the first time last Tuesday. But our wedding astrologer told my mum to delay the wedding until next February, to coincide with an auspicious alignment of the planets. Look, Trudy, I'm 17 and can't wait that long. It's time I started having children. What do I do?
Well, Jaya, astrology? Really? The only astronomical thing is the amount of money astrologers charge their victims. My best friend Dita is always banging on about sun signs, cusps, and things ascending in bungalows or some such twaddle. She's a Libra, the scales, and Librans are said to be well-balanced and even-tempered, which just goes to show it's all complete bollocks. So, Jaya, it's simple. You have to elope with your lovely boy. Go on, run away with him. You must have an equivalent to Gretna Green in India. Or maybe go to Delhi. Then at least you'll have lots of delicious bagels and olives and dips and things. And now there's a New Delhi as well, so you have two to choose from. When you get there, find a holy man to marry you. A Yogi Bear, or a Sadhu, or a Lama. Oh, a woolly llama with a long, rough tongue. Oh, where was I? Oh yes, if you have trouble finding a llama there, pop over the border to Tibet. Or even better, phone through from the Delhi. You can dial a llama these days. Whatever happens, at least you have someone lovely to run away with. Unlike poor Blake in Naples, Florida.
After breaking my leg recently, I've been lying here fantasizing about being with an older woman. Any advice on how to attract the mature lady?
Well, Blake, the first question is, have you only been attracting immature ladies up until now? I hope we're talking 18 plus for your sake. The best advice I can give you is better call Tosser and Aitchison on 561 333 4444. If you've been in an accident that wasn't your fault, their number one goal is to make sure you get every dollar you deserve. Okay, I know technically speaking this isn't exactly going to help you attract a mature lady, but that broken leg of yours isn't going to pay for itself, and Tosser and Aitchison are chucking money at me by the truckload for this shout-out. But back to your question. Now, not being a mature lady myself, far from it, I had to ask my best friend Dita for her advice in this area. She says that the mature lady can be characterised as having a sense of self-control and initiative, as well as self-esteem, empathy, and social skills. All of which is a bit rich coming from her. But are you really ready for a relationship with a self-fulfilled female who knows her own mind and may know more than you'd like about yours? Or perhaps you'd prefer someone even more mature, an older lady whose idea of a good night out is going to the bingo, but who prefers staying in knitting and watching Downton Abbey. Maybe you're on to something there. Just think of all the fun you'll have when she takes her teeth out. And all the money you'll save taking her anywhere on the bus. And you won't have to worry about getting her pregnant. Next, let's concentrate on Belen, who lives in Tunbridge Wells. If you don't know where that is, it's about 1954.
I'm not having much luck meeting the right man. I only seem to attract men who are either married, have low IQs, or who are either shorter than me, I'm just 5 foot, or too tall. Where am I going wrong?
Now, my millions of viewers all over the world and elsewhere know that I like nothing better than the appliance of science to their problems. It usually just takes me 10 minutes of in-depth research to figure out anything from particle physics to what day of the week it is. And I've come across this wonderful thing called a Venn diagram that looks nothing at all like a Ford Transit. Imagine 4 overlapping circles, each containing only the men who fit your criteria. The men in the first circle have to be unmarried. The men in the second circle have to have an IQ of over 100. In the third circle, they have to all be over 5 foot, and in the fourth circle, they all have to be under 6 foot tall. And if you're being honest, there are probably other circles that your Mr. Right would have to be in, aren't there? For example, the doesn't vote Conservative circle, the hasn't slept with Dieter circle, the unnaturally keen on marmoset monkeys circle. Oh, where was I? Oh yes. There are very few men out there who fall into the intersection between every one of these multitudinous circles, especially if you're going to put your foot down about not having slept with Dieter. Do you see the problem? It's not you. You are gorgeous and lovely and pretty. It's just very difficult to slip into your intersection. But back to Venn diagrams. Or are they Venn diagrams? I got a little confused. I think I must have let myself get bogged down in the science. And talking of Andrew Wakefield, see you next time, and remember, keep it light.
If you've been affected by any of the issues in this program, why not use my voice in this slot to promote your business's product or service? Contact marketing@trudylight.com.
My millions of viewers all over the world and elsewhere write to me with all sorts of problems. Some trivial, some not so trivial, but rarely one that affects an entire nation. That's why I was so pleased to get this email from Yanis, who's in Athens.
Dear Madam Trudy, you're so wise with your international life coaching to the stars and your social commentary. I could think of no better person to ask. Can you help us to solve the financial crisis in Greece, please?
Well, Yanis, the first thing to say is that I am not a madam. Definitely not. That was all just a misunderstanding between the Vice Squad, me and David Attenborough's line producer. Although I've never been to Greece, I've always been intrigued by your Greek customs. You can certainly be inventive in your use of olive oil, that's for sure. Now, your question, I have to confess, was all Greek to me. So, I did 10 minutes in-depth research into Greece's economic problems. Or, to put it another way, the economic problems in Greece, and I've identified the cause. Now, I don't want to get bogged down in the science, but it's all to do with macroeconomics. Instead of oily fish, your economy relies too much on tarama salata and hummus. Due to a worldwide fall in demand for these two products, Greece has suffered a double-dip recession. And then there's your language. 5,000 years ago, when you ruled the roost, everyone spoke Greek. But my millions of viewers all over the world and elsewhere don't understand your weird letters anymore. And some of them are Greek. And then there's those tired old Greek tragedies. I've seen enough of them to know they're short on laughs. Well, I only went once, and I slept all the way through it. But as my best friend Dita says, you don't have to go to the North Pole to know it's bloody cold there. That's why all the wildlife struggle so much and suffer from mental health problems, like those poor bipolar bears, all white, ferocious, and fluffy. Oh, where was I? Oh, yes. Greek entertainment. It's all melodrama, misery and depression. So lighten up, Greece. Find some X Factor, or Omega Factor as you might call it. My next email is about a very different and far more serious problem. It's from Anne, who's in Stratford-on-Avon.
Dear Trudy, my husband and I are having difficulty deciding on the name of our baby daughter. I want to call her Rose, but he wants to call her Ruth. Ruth, I ask you, it's not even the name of a flower. What do you think, Trudy?
Well, Anne, I'll tell you what I think. I think you want to be a florist, that's what I think. Where's the logic in naming a baby girl after a flower? Flowers are decorative, but have no brains. Is that the sort of message you want to give your daughter in the 21st century? And millions of my viewers all over the world and elsewhere are naming their daughters after flowers. Soon we won't be able to move for roses, lilies, violets and violas. Hyacinths, camellias and dahlias. Daisies, jasmines, marigolds and pansies. Poppies, primroses, petunias, peonies. What next? Foxglove? Oh, imagine a fluffy little fox wearing gloves. Oh, where was I? Oh yes, in 5 years' time when these girls reach school age, they'll have to be vaccinated against greenfly. Their classrooms will have to be made out of glass. For lunch they'll have to go and stand in a grow bag. OK, I'll stop defoliating that metaphor now. But Rose must be the worst name of all. Rose, like that thing on the end of a watering can spout. Rose, like Stephen Redgrave, he rose, or he did. Rose, like you get in spreadsheets. Boring. Rose, as in rose from the toilet. You might just as well call your daughter Lavatory and have done with it. Rose, fish eggs, yuck. There again, as Shakespeare said, what's in a name? That which we call a rose by any other name would smell as sweet. Yeah, right. By the way, Shakespeare went on to say, so Romeo would, were he not Romeo called, retain that dear perfection which he owes without that title. Romeo doth thy name, and for thy name, which is no part of thee, take all myself. Ah, isn't that wonderful? You know, before I became one of the world's leading international celebrity life coaches to the stars, I thought about being an actress. Or a spot welder. My best friend Dita's a very good actress, you know. She's always acting like I don't exist. But back to your question. What should you call your baby daughter? How about Ben? Like in Ben Nevis windows, who make easily the best double glazing in... Actually, come to think of it, their payment hasn't come through this month, so they can go fuck themselves. Now, I have an important announcement to make. Or, to put it another way, I have to announce something important. Can you believe it? This is the last episode in our first season here on Amazon Prime. Which means that unless the sun has altered its trajectory, this is my 10th episode. Oh, don't worry, the sun hasn't altered its trajectory. It's still spinning happily on its axis, whizzing round the earth, same as ever. So I thought it might be fun to take a look back at some of the highlights of this first season. Who'd have thought when we set off all those weeks ago that me and my millions of viewers all over the world and elsewhere— oh, that reminds me, some smarty-pants mathematician wrote to me the other day to say that 1 million is actually 1,000 times 1,000 or something. Really? Why be so technical? Talk about getting bogged down in the science. Everyone knows that 1 million is just an awful lot of viewers. And if these mathematicians are so clever, then how come they're still calculating pi after all these years? Pie? Pastry and a filling, that's about it, isn't it? So, what were the highlights of this first season? Well, oh boy, who could forget Meghan? She felt insecure in her relationship with Harry, so I explained to her the importance of trust in a relationship. Now she makes sure that Harry's arms are trussed and his legs are trussed, and he's not going anywhere. Then, who could forget Françoise, who wrote to me from the southwest of France? When it turned out that her interest in white clean PVC clothing was shared with Pierre, I made them match and they were married. Françoise then wrote to me,
Trudy, c'est le jour de ma vie le plus beau. Merci bien, tu es un ange.
Who knew they talk like that in the southwest of France? Then, at Christmas, you'll remember that misunderstanding with the rectal thermometer and the nappies. Well, how was I to know he was an archbishop? Phew. Christmas is all over now, but I always try to be one wise Trudy, like the 3 wise men in that Bronze Age fairy tale. Were they really that wise, though? I mean, wasn't it a teeny bit selfish dropping everything on a whim to go and follow a star that close to Christmas? Their poor wives having to decorate the tree. And shopping doesn't do itself, does it? Back in those days, Amazon was a river in South America. Oh, I nearly forgot. The real highlight of this season for me. My restraining order has been lifted at last. Thanks, Dieter. Now I have no worries when I leave the house. And talking of Paul Ryan, see you next time. And remember, keep it light.
If you've been affected by any of the issues in this programme, hold that thought, because the good news is we'll be back with Season 2 of the Trudy Light Show very soon.